All right, I'm sitting down here and I am welcoming you to another episode of the Blue Ox Running Podcast. It is episode number 28, which means we are on episode number 6 of our marathon training series. We are past halfway. We are getting down to business in training. We are loving it. So, I'll give you an update of kind of like what I've been doing for workouts and how excited I am right now in my training. In a little while, I'm about 3.5 weeks out as of this recording. We are getting down to it. We are right in the middle of the grunt work. We are right in the middle of the hardest, longest training, the most important weeks before we start to taper. And I'm having a blast. Honestly, staying healthy. Workouts are going well. Long runs are going well. And I'll give you a better update about that in a moment. But the long run, speaking of long runs on the weekend, the long run is our topic of the day. We're going to talk all about kind of why the long run is important, how we can use the longest run of our week. Most people do it on a weekend. You don't have to do it on a weekend. I'm going to be talking through this podcast about my long runs happening usually on Saturday morning. That's just how I structure my week. You can go back and listen to the previous episodes about how it might be smart to structure your week on the most important days in your macro and micro cycles of training schedules. I typically do my most important workout on a Wednesday. I do the long run on a Saturday, and then I do maybe something else of substance on a Monday. So today we're talking all about that Saturday long run for myself and why it matters and how we can use it in marathon training. So, man, the long run is really on my mind right now because I just got done last weekend finishing the longest run I will complete until I line up for Grandma's Marathon. I ran a 24-mile, as actually like a little over 24.15 or something like that. 24-mile long run. I actually did it early in the morning as we were camping in a different location. We were camping in Frontenac State Park in Minnesota. It takes a little bit of preparation to know where the heck you're going if you're going to have a long route that's out of your that's kind of out of your hometown or out of your normal routes. I enjoy this part of the long run as far as finding new places to run, but there is a little legwork. I had to go on the map and kind of see what county roads I was going to do. I found an awesome loop that gave me a lot of elevation climbing. And from my campsite, I ran to that loop. That was a few miles. And then I ran this 9-mile loop twice. And then I had to run back to my campsite. And so I actually got like 1,700 feet of climb on this 24-mile run. It was amazing. I had one of the biggest runner's highs afterwards because I was coming back to like this huge camping breakfast and putting eggs and hash browns on the griddle. And my kids were waking up. And I was just one of those typical morning people that got up and got after it early, and it paid off. So had a great long run. I mean, I think I was running like, the pace doesn't really matter, but I'm very encouraged with how training is going. I'm encouraged with how I was responding to the hills, and I'll get into kind of my top tips or tricks about using the long run in marathon training in a moment. Before I do that, let me describe how my long run fluctuates through different phases of the training. Remember, go back and listen to previous episodes if you need a refresher on, I'm taking a 24-week block here to train for a single marathon. The first 12 weeks, the first half is all called base phase. I'm building in that base phase. And then I go through a speed phase, and then now I'm square in the middle of the marathon specific phase. So during base phase, I'm building my long run. Okay, now I'm a runner that has a lot of miles underneath my belt. I'm constantly training, kind of year around, and I'm staying in touch with a pretty long run, regardless if I'm training for a 5K or a marathon or a half marathon. I really like to keep my long run somewhere in touch of 2 hours, even in the off season. So that doesn't mean I run a 2-hour long run every week. And for me, that's about 17 or 18 miles. So that doesn't mean that I'm doing that every week, but at any given moment, I can kind of go out for maybe an hour 40 or a 2 hour long run. And I know not everyone is there to be able to just kind of jump to 16 or 18 miles whenever they want. But during the base phase is when you're going to want to build up that long run. I tell people, don't put pressure on yourself to build it up every single week. I kind of think of my longest runs building over the course of maybe every other week. So, if you're striving to get to a 2 hour or a 2.5 hour long run or something, and you're only at an hour and a half right now, you don't need to jump up every single week. You take that whole base phase, which is 12 weeks, and get yourself to where you want to be over the course of many weeks. So be smart. Just like building mileage overall, you don't want to spike your mileage. You don't want to build too fast or too steep of a curve there. It's the same thing with the long run. Really only adding 1 or 2 miles each week is, giving you more mileage. And this is the most important run. And it gives you the most stress on the pounding of the most minutes of that your body's going to have. So it's not like you can just go from 5 miles to 15 miles the next week and then 20 miles the next week. It's not that simple. Those are nice round numbers that people like to think about. 10 mile long run, 15 mile long run, 20 mile long run. But, go 10 to 12, go to 13 or 14 for maybe 2 or 3 weeks in a row, go to 15 to 16. Once you're in that 15, 16 range, then that's a pretty long run where marathon training is going to be, really benefited from. So, couple frequently asked questions I get with the long run is how many times do I get up to 20 or over 20? And I believe I'm only going over 20 2 or 3 times this build up. I've been at like 18 or 19 mile long runs for like months now. So, that's kind of my normal right now. That was normal going into the speed phase even. And I guess what I would say is don't put pressure on yourself to have like all of this good training, think it's going to happen in like one long run. If you just technically get to a 23-mile long run, you're going to be good to go. I would much rather have somebody finish 3 or 4 18 to 21 mile long runs feeling good and not feeling like they're going to get injured and not feeling like they're at a total deficit. They can recover well from an 18 or a 20 mile long run. And so maybe one time you go 22 or 23, one time. I know people that run marathons very well, only doing 20 miles for their longest long run. That's totally fine. It is important to know kind of what your background is, how many miles you have, how durable you are. I'm in my 40s now, so I need to be careful with the stretching and all the overuse stuff still, but I have a lot of miles under my belt, and going 24 miles this past weekend, I was in a very good position to do that because, last fall I did a 100-miler, and all the training and all the endurance stuff I was doing for that of hours and hours of training has put me in a position for this training cycle to have my long run be a little bit longer. But again, you get diminishing returns. If you go over 20 miles, it's not like there's a lot of, there's going to be more recovery. And I want to make sure that I'm getting my long run in on the weekend, but I'm also recovering to get that next round of workouts in, especially my next Wednesday workout. I could go out and do 30 or 35 mile long runs if I wanted to, but that is actually going to put me in a worse position to get the work needed for my Wednesday workout, my strides throughout the day. I'm just going to be totally hammered, and my legs are going to be totally hammered and out of it. So I think that 18 to 21 miles, I think that 2 hour mark is like very, very approachable. 2 to 2.5 hours is a good amount of time to be out there. And then you're going to want to take a few times where you go the full distance and duration on number of minutes that you'll be out there for your marathon. So for example, my 24 miler took me 2 hours and 50 minutes to do. Now, my goal time is about 2:30 in the marathon, so I went a little over, but I've done it before where my longest long run matched up to be the same number of minutes as my goal time. So if you're shooting for a 3:15 marathon, getting out there maybe once or twice for 3 hours and 15 minutes will probably take you to 22 or 23 miles because you're running, slower on your long runs. That would be like my best advice, is to maybe get to the longest, get to the same duration on minutes, but not the same duration distance on miles for that longest long run. So again, during the base phase, we're building our long run smartly. During the speed phase, we're going to maintain some sort of long run, 15 to 16, maybe 18 miles in the speed phase. And then once we get to this marathon phase, 5 weeks of marathon phase, basically every other week, I'm going pretty darn long. Those are the weeks that I've gone over 20 miles. And then in my, kind of those in-between weeks where maybe I don't go 23 or 24 or even 21, this next coming week here, I'm going to run probably 18, but I put a little bit of quality into the long run. That's what's different about the marathon phase. You have permission to go longer on your long run or put a little bit of quality into the long run. So that's what makes this phase very taxing. The recovery is needed. And these are some long efforts. So, last week I did 24 miles. I kept it easy the whole way. It was very hilly. This week I will do 18 miles as I start to be about 3 weeks out. I'll do 16 or 17, maybe 18 miles at pretty normal, easy pace to start. But in the middle, I'll kind of flirt with some miles in the middle that are at marathon pace. Not a ton, but I believe I'll go like 5 to 6 miles alternating, a little above marathon pace and a little below marathon pace. And once I'm done with those middle miles, I'll probably just kind of run easy for the last bit. So I'll break this as an example. I'll break this 18-mile long run this coming week into thirds. 6 miles easy, and then 6 miles I'll float kind of around marathon pace, and then I'll do 6 miles easy at the end. I've also done it before where I go 10 miles easy and then 10 miles at marathon pace. That's the 20-mile long run. That, I think I'm a little too close to the marathon to do. That's a very taxing day. You can practice your fueling on that and stuff, but being 3 weeks out, I would probably do that one maybe 4 to 5 weeks out of the marathon. So that's an example of like some long runs that you can put some quality into. I also know people that will do like 1 minute on and off fartleks in the middle of their long run just to kind of like shock the system and to kind of like wake up a little bit on the long run and get used to running fast by the end. And then there's what's called a progressive long run, where the first half is very easy and the second half you're just progressively getting faster. You might run, 8 or 9 miles very easy, and then 8 or 9 miles cutting down from like a little over marathon pace, and then get into marathon pace, and then maybe you'll even touch half marathon pace by the very end. So those are some examples of quality in the long run. I would suggest you do your very longest long runs without the pressure of doing any kind of quality or crazy crazy workout in the middle. But again, every other week I'm going very long, and then on my kind of normal long runs and the weeks between, I might sprinkle in some quality. So that's how I structure my long runs. There's a lot of evidence and a lot of science that goes into, the benefits you get after 2 hours and kind of the depreciating benefits that you get after 3 hours. So 2 to 3 hours is a very good sweet spot to build your long run to, get the benefits, but not overdo it where you're going to be up for like more injury risk. Anything over 3 hours, you got to be really careful with. But again, you might go over 3 hours, maybe once or twice if you're looking at, depending on your paces. Okay, here are my top 5. I'm going to close out today's episode by giving you 5 tips and tricks. My top 5 tricks to use for your long run. These are my favorite things about using the long run. Number 5 is going to be use your long run as a way to do full fueling. Get used to your fueling and nutrition plan. Now, I've got a whole episode coming up in the future. I'm going to talk about all nutrition, but use your long run to fuel. You need to be fueled beforehand. You need to be fueled during. I do not believe in too much of a fasted, kind of depleted long run. I used to do some of those. I think it's very dangerous and risky. It's not the end of the world if you do like a fasted long run, but I just think that your body is going to get used to what you throw at it. And I'm going to do a whole episode on nutrition where I'll dive into it more. But for today's episode, just know you should be fueled beforehand, the night before, decent amount of carbs. The morning of, I'm doing my oatmeal with maple syrup. I'm practicing what I'm going to do for that marathon race day, getting my stomach used to it, and I'm getting my stomach used to the fueling that I'll put in mostly on race day. So practice fueling. Okay, the next tip or trick, number 4, is ease into your long run. You don't need to think about pacing too much. I already described some long runs that are going to have some quality sprinkled in, but you have so much time on long runs that quality is not going to start in the first third of it. It's not going to start right away. So the long run pace is more of a vibe than it is a number. I don't even like look at my watch on long runs. I kind of know how long I need to go, but like I really have a screen on my watch that I actually don't know how fast I'm going. I just have time and heart rate, and even time of day if I need to get back for a certain appointment or something. Like I don't care about my pacing data ever during a long run unless I'm doing something formal like a workout I've already described. So go on vibes. You need to train your central governor. You need to train your brain to know when you're going too hard and too soft. You should be able to talk and carry on a conversation for those easy long runs, no problem. Way too many people go too fast and think that the long run is where you do all of your marathon pace training, and it's just not the case. You might do some marathon pace stuff, but it's going to be sprinkled in. It's not going to be the whole long run. So ease into it, and maybe that second half will be a little quicker if you're feeling good. But go on feel. Ease into your long runs. All right, number 3. We already talked about this actually. Number 3 is you can use you can use long runs as a way to put in quality training. This is a quality day in your training. It is a long day, and it is very taxing, especially when you put some quality into it. We already talked about some ways you can do that with fartlek running, with mile repeats, kind of going in and out of marathon pace, but use long runs in the marathon phase to do some quality. Tip and trick number 2, as I'm kind of counting these down as my top. So my 5, 4, 3, 2 is to test your gear. Don't just test your nutrition, but use the long run to test the gear, especially the gear that you're going to use on race day. You might find out that the shorts you wear doesn't carry as many gels as you thought. You might find out that the socks you wear are actually a little bit too tight or too loose, or they're too thick once you get to longer long runs. You might find out that your sunglasses don't stay on your head when you wear a certain hat over an hour. You might find out that carrying gels or carrying your nutrition in a certain way is more helpful. You have to practice this stuff and use your long. Don't use only like 20-minute short recovery runs or hour short recovery runs because you might find out, yeah, this would be fine if I had to carry it this way for 3 miles, but for carrying my gels or whatever for 26 miles, I need to do it this way. So practice your gear. And then my number 1 tip and trick for long runs is my favorite thing about running in different places. Use, if you got the time and you got an open weekend or something, it's fun to maybe run in different places. You get used to the routes that go around your house, but I've been dropped off at trailheads before and then I run home. I've been dropped off in Menominee. Our family went to a cross-country meet one day to see my son run, and we watched it all together as a family. I brought my running stuff, and then on the way home, they dropped me off in Menominee, and I ran back to Eau Claire. So that was an example of a very long run that I like to find different places to run. You can run with friends. You can get out on trails you haven't done before. Get out on the Ice Age Trail if you're training for trail stuff. Use your long run as a way to explore and just enjoy running. I absolutely can remember specific long runs that I did as part of my buildups even 15 years ago, as I'm kind of starting to figure out what marathon pace is and what this marathon event is. And I'm with buddies out in the DC area. We're on the C&O Canal Pathway. I can remember, these are building memories. You're enjoying the training. You're enjoying the process. You're not a machine. You're not just trying to put in the work and have your training diary look a certain way. Enjoy being out there. Enjoy the crappy weather. Enjoy the good weather. You never know what you're going to get. Don't back away from the long run if it's crappy weather, because you might have crappy weather on race day. So use that as an opportunity to prepare yourself and to embrace it. Okay? Those are my top tricks for the long run. It is all about full fueling. It is all about easing into it. It's all about using quality or mixing up your training on a long run, testing your gear, and maybe even traveling and building memories on the long run. I already alluded to kind of how training's going. It's going very well. I just finished an awesome workout on Wednesday where I ran 4-mile warm-up. I ran 8 miles at marathon pace, so I was running like 5:43, 5:44 for 8 miles. Then I did 10-minute jog to another part of town, and I did 2 by a mile pretty hard. So I ran right around 5:01 for the first and 4:58, I think, for the second one. So things are going well. I got that workout from some Olympians, actually did it for Boston training. I kind of looked at their Instagram and I thought, hey, that's pretty interesting. I wonder what it would look like or feel like to do some hard mile repeats on tired legs. That was the whole point, is to run, a handful of miles on marathon pace, get your legs tired, and then actually go faster. This is probably building the skill set of durability and strength at the end of the marathon, still being able to turn over, still being able to be mentally tough. And I got some good marathon pace in. And man, I just think training's going amazing, to be honest. I'm pinching myself a little bit that I'm able to do some of this stuff, because I think I'm going to be pretty darn fit, more fit than I thought going into Grandma's. I'm cautiously optimistic about sharing any kind of time goals, but I think that I think I'm going to be able to enjoy myself running pretty quick out there. That was a workout I did only 4 days after I ran that 24-mile hilly long run. My legs had a little bit of snapback in them already, and I'm getting ready for this week's long run, which will have a little quality in it. And then honestly, next week is my last week of marathon phase. So I've got another workout and kind of a long run, and then we're tapering. I cannot believe how fast this is going. I'm going to put out an episode every week from here on out to get us to 10 episodes. I'm going to talk about nutrition. I'm going to talk about tapering. I'm also going to talk about gratitude and just like looking at your whole training cycle and looking back and using the confidence of your training to feed into being confident on race day. I'm going to go through a whole episode of every single workout that I did and trying to build my confidence and just looking back as a mental exercise. And then I'm going to put out an episode after the race as kind of a looking back and summarizing how it went. And I appreciate you if you're still along for the ride here, getting some good tips and tricks, I hope. And that's going to be it for this episode on the long run. I will be in touch with you on the social media, and have a good day. We'll see you next week for our last week in marathon phase.